So we want to discuss about alignment today in slightly more detail, and then we will look at how different kinds of transformations like T can be computed. And then we will move on to understand the cameras and how a camera makes an image from the 3D world, transforming that into the 2D world of the camera. So the problem set up here is that you have matching pairs of points x1 in one image, let's call it image 1, and the matching coordinate in image 2, let's call it I2 or I prime. It's better to call it I prime, is xi prime, as you can see, I and I prime. So this is a typical notation that we use. So when you say xi, you have to understand that there are two coordinates, xi and yi, which we just denote as xi, a vector. And also remember, to make them homogeneous, sometimes we will add one more coordinate, a 1 at the end. So we have to remember that the coordinates are represented in this fashion. So if you take xi prime, it is the same. So we have n matching pairs of coordinates. What we want to do is, when we apply a transformation T, these two matching pairs will come on top of each other. They will be the same. So this transformation is computed by minimizing the residual or the error between xi prime and transformed xi. And we do that for all the endpoints, which is the summation of the residual across I. I hope that the problem setting is clear to you. If there's any question, as usual, please do not hesitate to type a question in the chat box or turn on the mic and answer. Okay, so like this, the transformations are of many types. So if you take this one, you can see this is what we designate by, for example, a T, a transformation T. So therefore, if you compute this transformation, you need to find Tx, Ty, and theta. Please ignore E, epsilon. So it's a 3-parameter transformation. We call them, if you have just 3 parameters, we call them Euclidean transformations. If you have the scaling also, small s here, you scale in x-axis and y-axis by an equal amount, you call it a similarity transformation. And then if you do not have the structure, cos theta, sin theta, minus sin theta, cos theta structure, but you just have some 4 numbers, A11, A12, A21, A22. Of course, this one is a non-singular matrix. That means I think you understand what that means. The determinant is non-zero. Then you have a so-called affine transformation. And then if you do not have such a structure, but these zeros are also replaced by some number, then we call it a projective transformation. So this is the hierarchy of transformations. So you can see the number of parameters that each of these transformations require to be specified. Three for the Euclidean transformation, 4 in this case. How many for the affine? 6. You can say Tx, Ty, and A11, A12, A21, and A22. And for the projective transformation of the homography, 2 here and 4 parameters here and 2 parameters there. And there's an arbitrary scale. So therefore, not 9 parameters, but 8 parameters have to be estimated. I hope that this is clear to you. This is what we did last time in our code, but before that, we will see these transformations being there in reality. For example, if you keep the camera axis perpendicular to the flow of a tiled flow like this, yeah, and you'll get a scaled version of this transformation, or you get a rotated version of that, and that we can call a similarity. You can see these squares are still squares, and this 90-degree angle is still a 90-degree angle. And you see that this is a square, that means all sides are equal, and this angle is a 90-degree angle. In this case, in the affine, you can see they are no longer squares, but they are rhombuses. The sides are equal. These sides are equal, but this angle is not 90 degrees. Yeah. The parallel lines that used to be, for example, this line is parallel to this line. This line is parallel to this line, are still parallel. So you can see that we take this line and that line, they are still parallel. If you take this line and that line, I'm not properly drawing them, they are still parallel, as you can see. But if you go for the projective transformation of the homography, even the line parallelism is gone. You can see that these lines seem to meet. Yeah, they are no longer parallel, right? Not parallel. You can see that. So I have drawn and shown them to you. See, parallel lines are no longer parallel. Yeah. So I hope you understand what happens due to these different levels of transformations. And when we have the point matches, we can compute them. Actually, we can decompose a projective transformation. That means it's a general one into a combination of a projectivity and a affine and a similarity, but we will not go into details of that. Yes. So this picture is from the book called Multiple View Geometry by Richard Hartley and Andrew Zimmerman. You can see they have given, starting from the projective transformation, what kind of objects that we created, affine transformation, similarity, and 3 degree of freedom, Euclidean transformation. But there are some additional details also, which we will not describe in this class, but if someone is interested, you can go through this book and understand. They are important concepts, but not part of this course. So if you think about the affine transformation, you can see if you take two objects like that, you can see the relationship between these two is an affine transformation. Yeah, you have to know whether that is an affine transformation. Otherwise, computing an affine transformation is not useful. But in this case, we are given that the relationship is an affine transformation. So to compute that, we can use a procedure called linear least squares. So we will look at the procedure also. Approximates viewpoint changes for roughly plane objects and roughly orthographic cameras. That means these cameras should have infinitely large focal lengths. So these can be used to initialize fitting a more complex transformation. Okay, so let's see how this transformation can be computed. Okay, so in the previous one lesson slide, we wrote this affine transformation as A11, A12, Tx and Ty and so on, right? This is how what we wrote. But you can see that Tx and Ty apply to x and y, right? So therefore, we can break that and write like this. So T1 and T2 here, this is the T, M1, M2, M3, M4, a slight different notation, but it's the same thing. So the translation and this matrix M. So the six parameters that we have to estimate. So since we have to estimate these parameters, we have to, okay, we want to find M and T to minimize these xi prime are the transform points x's are in the first image. So we are transforming them using this transformation parameterized by M and T. So this is the, you can see this is the residual, right? Error or the residual. So of course we square it and try to minimize that. Now, rather than doing that, we write it like this expression. So you can see the multiplier of M1 is Xi, right? So you have Xi here as the first coordinate of this line, first parameter of that line, which multiplies M1. M2 is multiplied by Y1. So you can see the Y1 is here and M2 is there. Then you have T1 in this equation. So T1 is multiplied by this one and T2 is multiplied by 0 because T2 is not there in the equation number 1. In this case, there are two equations or two lines are there, equation number 1 and 2, right? This is equation number 1 and this is equation number 2. So we have only shown equation number 1 in this case. So each point match gives you two equations in this context. So you can see this is the second equation. So I'll give you a second to see whether that is correct. Okay, I hope you have convinced yourselves that it is correct. So if you have 5-point matches here, you can have 5-point matches here in this image, right? How many equations will you have? You'll have 10 equations. So you have 6 unknown parameters. So you have to solve these 10 equations to find the 6 unknown parameters. How many matches do we need to solve for the transformation of parameters? Actually, because only 6 parameters there are, each point match gives you 2 equations. You only need 6. You only need 3-point matches. 3-point matches like this. But you can have more point matches than 3. So if you think about the homography, a plane projective transformation, a transformation taking a quadrangle to another arbitrary quad, like that. You can see the action of a homography is shown like this in this fashion. Right? How do homographies arise in the real world? So you can see when you take pictures of a plane using two different angles, they arise. The transformation between two views of a planar surface. That's one of the ways. And the transformation between two images from two cameras that share the same center. That means you keep the camera on a tripod and rotate the camera. Then the relationship between the two images is also homographic. So using this, we can have a great application of this panorama stitching, where we keep the camera on a tripod and we take multiple images. You can see this tripod camera keeping is shown here. You can see that the camera has been rotated and you have taken that many images. And those images can be stitched together to make a panorama. Okay, so let's see whether how we can find this homography. First of all, we write these xy Cartesian coordinates as homogeneous coordinates by adding a 1. If you happen to see a w here, to get the Cartesian coordinates, you have to divide this x by w and y by w. So equation for homography in homogeneous coordinates is like this. So this is this 9-parameter structure that we saw, h11 up to h33, and then this is x, y, and 1, x prime, y prime, and 1, and there's an unknown scale factor here. So we write this as lambda x prime equals hx. So because of this lambda, we had to do a trick here. So what we do is we multiply, we get the cross product of this equation with xi prime. So you know that the cross product between two vectors that are parallel, yeah, two vectors that are parallel, when this angle theta is 0, the cross product is 0, right? A, B. So A cross B is 0 if theta is 0, right? If they are parallel, the cross product is 0. So similarly, when you get the cross product here, if you are getting the cross product of xi prime with xi prime, they are parallel vectors, so you get 0 there. That's when you get the 0 here, 0 vector there, and this you have. So by looking at how this cross product works, this is how the cross product works. I will not go into detail. You can consider the rows of this H matrix and then write an equation in this fashion. So I will not go into details of this equation, of course, but if you carefully look at them, you will be able to see that it comes to like that. So here also you can rearrange the terms and you can write an equation like this. So H1, H2, H3 are there in this equation. Each H1 has three numbers, right? H11, H12, and H13, and so on. So you equate it to 0. So an obvious solution for this is if you put, now there are 9 numbers here, H11, H12 up to H33. If you put 0 to all the 9 numbers, you will anyway get 0. A matrix multiplied by 0 will be 0. But this is not what we want. We want some other solution. So therefore, we have to impose a constraint. Are all these equations independent? Actually, only 2 are linearly independent. So we need 4-point measures to compute the homography because there are 8 parameters that we have to compute. So when you stack up these points, you can see this is due to the point number 1 match, this is due to the nth point pair match, and so on. So there are that many point pairs giving rise to equations. You can write this as H equals 0. When you have H equals 0, of course, if you put, as I said before, all zeros here, for H, you will get anyway 0, but that is not the solution that we want. We have to find H minimizing H, norm of H squared is 0. So a solution for that, so this is a well-known theory. A solution is an eigenvector of A transpose A corresponding to the smallest eigenvalue. So all the numerical packages will have a way of obtaining this. So we can use singular value decomposition in NumPy to solve this. What is the minimum number of matches needed for a solution? A has 8 degrees of freedom, 9 parameters, but the scale is arbitrary. One match gives us two linearly independent equations, so therefore you need 4-point matches. Okay. So affine transformation can be computed slightly simply, but homography you have to compute using the SVD. But one thing is we don't have to actually compute these things by ourselves. We can use OpenCV to compute these. So I will write a small program and show you by manually clicking the points and computing the homography using the OpenCV function, homography, and how the image can be transformed onto the other. I will show you that right now. Let's get our VS Code running. As you can see, this is what we did last time. We transformed points and observed how each of these transformations, like the similarity, the Euclidean, the affine, and the homography, acts upon the original points. Maybe this is, you can remember that. So this is blue one is the original square that I drew. It has length 1, all sides, and the angle is 90. First of all, we applied a similarity transformation. This red one is the similarity one. There, what we did was rotating by 90 degrees. So this is a similarity. rotating by transformation, rotating by 45 degrees. And then you can see the cos theta minus sine theta, cos theta structure. And with that, we have plotted that. And that one is the similarity. You can see the scaling has happened. It is the 90-degree angles have remained. Then we applied the affine transformation. There you can see the structure 1.5 to 1.5. This is the affine transformations matrix M that we used here. And you can see we have plotted that. You can see it has become a rhombus, but the all sides are still equal. But when you get the homographic transformation, where these have coordinates, these have numbers, the last row has numbers, non-zero numbers. In all these, the last row is 0, 0, 1. See? Last row is 0, 0, 1. When the last row also gets numbers, then different things happen. So it is just a quadrangle, like line parallelism and so on are gone. Yeah, that's what we did last time. Okay. Yes. So to do that, we need some images. So I will send you those images. But one thing you can do is you can download them, of course. That location also I will show you. These are called graffiti images. I have put that file, an 8 MB file in your chat. Also, I will put that in your Moodle also. Okay, so this zip file called graffito to stand graffiti images I uploaded. But now I will show you the contents of that folder. So in that folder, there are 6 images. Those 6 images are images of this graffiti wall. So you can use Irfan View to open these files. You can see this is image number 1 and this is image number 2. You can see the same wall has been photographed with different viewing angles. Also, they have given the homographies from image 1 to 2. So you can open using a notepad or something. So notepad or something you can use. Take this for example. So you can see this is the 3 by 3 matrix. that transforms image 1 to 2. And then there are 5 of those: 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5, and 1 to 6. So those ones. But this is what we want to compute. Yeah. So for that, we will use mouse click points. So for the mouse clicking, there is a little bit of a code that's required. That code I will give you. Yes, first of all, import CV2 as CV as usual. Then we have to import numpy as np. Let's open the two images. So first of all, im1, im1 equals cv imread. So remember that I have these images kept in some kind of a folder. I have to open them from that folder. Let me see how to get that. Yeah, this folder. Inside this, it's there in a folder called graph. And first of all, I want to open the first image of that graph folder. It is img1.ppm. ppm. And I want to open that as a color image. Read color. First image, and then the second image. Second image has been opened, and then of course we have to assert im1 is not none, and im2 is not none, right? I don't want that. Okay, so let's run this and see whether these images can be opened. The two images have been opened. The first exercise I'm going to do is, I'm going to open that homography and I will transform that and show you that indeed that is the correct homography. So I had opened that file. Open. File is in that folder. The file name is H122. That's a file. As a file. I'll open that and I will read that into H. homography H equals create an NP array of floats of the things that I read from this file. Right, to put H here. Okay, then I want to print this H. I'm reading the homography from this file. So you can see the homography that we saw in this notepad 8.797 is the one that we have read. So we print the homography. So we read the homography. Now I want to warp the image number 1 onto image number 2. Im2 1. Okay, Im1 to 2, 1 to 2. So the function is a CVW warp perspective. First of all, we have to get image 1 and then the homography and then give a size actually. I do not know how this site can be computed, but first of all, let me try like 1,000 and 1,000 and so on. 1,000 and 1,000. Okay. So this warping will happen now. This is not a problem. But now what I want to do is I'll take image 1 to 2, that means transform 1, and copy image 2 in the right place. Yeah. 7672474. So Im1 to 2 in that image, I'm going to take from 0 coordinate to image 2 shape 0 and 0 to shape 1, and where there I'm going to put image 1. That's enough. So I can show them now. CV dot, I will use OpenCV to show them. Name window, first of all, image 1. Image 1, I will show that as CV dot window auto size. That's the first image window. Sometimes this unnecessary AI prompting is there. Okay. Then show in that window image 1, Im1, and then I will create another image called image win2 and show the image 2 in that. Then I want to create image 1 to image 2, that transformation. In that one, then I'll show that over there. Yes. Then wait key and close all window, destroy all window. That's all I need to do. Okay, so let me run that. Okay. So this is image 1 to 2. Where are the other images? Okay. Let's see the other images. Image 1, image. Let's put a wait key there. So that we can see this. So you can, it'll wait for a mouse click. So this is image 1, this is image 2. So now you can see image 1 has to rotate like that to warp onto image 2's frame. So this is what we have done. So can you see that? That warping has happened. You cannot even see the seams. So the seams are like this. The seams will be there, right? The seams. This one, I don't know where it stops. So also like is very accurately transformed onto the other one. What's the reason? Because the homography they have given us. Yeah. But this is not what we want to do. We want to estimate the homography by ourselves by doing the mouse clicking and using a homography computation code. We can manually compute the homography also because I have given you the equations in the slides. That also you can do. It is an exercise that you want to do at home. We will not do that. But what we will do is we will compute the homography using the compute homography function in OpenCV. So this code that we have done is transforming image image 1 to the frame of image 2 using the given homography. Spelling mistakes in this with this word. Okay, I hope you understand that. So next one, what we want to do is not that one. We want to do this transformation using homography computed using mouse click points. That's what we want to do now. I hope you understand that the purpose of that. Anyways, the most of the code for here will remain the same. I'll copy that. Maybe I'll copy the whole thing and erase the middle part. This what perspective all these things are required. The homography computation part is the only one that will change. Okay, now we have to add code to compute the homography using mouse click points. For that, I will click maybe 5 points, 6 points, maybe 6 points or so. Because more points, it's better. You only need for 4 points. But if you have 6 points, it will be slightly more accurate. So there is a callback function that you want. This callback function and so on, I will put here. And you need a global n is equal to 0. So empty set of points to keep the points in the first image. This is to keep the points in the second image. You can see they are two-dimensional n times 2 array. And draw a circle. So after, when you click the mouse, I'm drawing a circle. Otherwise, you cannot see where I'm clicking. And then this is fine. And I need a copy of image 1, im1 copy. This one, and im2 copy also. Then I will display it in a named image window like so. That is fine. Photo size and set the mouse callback. Yeah. So now while one everlasting loop, while one, yeah, we show the image, and until this small n is less than we click, you can see, you understand, right? So until this matches with this capital N, you keep on clicking these points. Set mouse callback parameters P1 and M1 copy. Yes. I think we have to create the parameters and send. P1 and one copy the parameters, and then here param. It's slightly a cumbersome code. Then it's the same thing. I hope this is okay. Set n equals to 0, small n equals to 0, and set the callback. We have already set n equals 0. This is the image 1 clicking. Then we have to do the image 2 clicking. So, yeah, image 1 clicking here. Then we have to do image 2 clicking. For image 2 clicking, we can parameters are p2 and im2 copy, and then mouse scroll back we do, and then this while loop also we need. Yeah, okay. So we can print these points, print p1 and print p2, those print things that we have copied, and then the homographic computation h equals, this is the important one, CV find homography p1 p2, and you can see the finding method they have written. The AI is prompting as ransack. Yeah, so this is how you compute the homography, and then we can print h also. This will not be as accurate as the one they have given. The reason is because when you're clicking points, you cannot exactly click points. There is a mistake in clicking points. Yeah. So let's try this now. Okay, I click this. I had to remember where I clicked. Okay, this one, this one, this one. I'm clicking 7 points. This one, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one. Okay, so I had clicked exactly the same points, starting from this one. Where did I click next? Yeah, edge of the sword. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Yeah. Something is wrong. It's not stopping. Oh my goodness, something is wrong. So we had to stop the program. Oh, this has given the wrong number, so it has to be in, and we have not set small m to 0. Yeah, close this. Yeah, unfortunately. The board would. Let me try now again. Otherwise, I have a code written at home. I'll show that code because taking time. Okay, so click the 6 points, started from this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, starting from the same point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you can see now the stitched image has come. You may be able to see slight problems. You can see this. There is a problem here, right? I hope you can see that these have not probably been aligned. Why? Because our point clicking is not so accurate. That's the reason. Oh, it's not closing for some reason. Yeah, closed. Yeah, so this is that code. So I will make this code available to you. But what you need to understand is what we did. We have created an array of points for the first image and for the second image, and we mouse clicking, we populated them. So you can see those points here, like x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3, x4, y4, x5, y5, x6, y6, and x1 prime, x and so on, right? Okay, you can see that the 6 points in the image number 1 and image number 2. So for this point clicking, we wrote those codes. After this point clicking, it was very simple. We use this CV find homography function that is available in OpenCV. So you can see the finding the homography is so important. That's why they have it available in OpenCV and compute that homography. And this is what I printed. So this homography and the one that they have given are different. They computed somehow this homography. I actually I don't know how they computed that. They are okay, like this 8.7, 0.87. So here we have got 0.69. So obviously different, right? Here we have given 0.31. Here we have gotten 0.16. Here 0.39. So very different. Yeah. Yes. So you can see. Okay, so mouse clicking and obtaining the homography is not good because we cannot exactly click those points. These points that we get for homography computer must be subpixel accurate. Subpixel accurate. That means you have to take the pixels as just heights and fit a function for those and get sub. So this is possible if you automatically compute these points. I will show you that also later. Okay. Now this is one thing. So we have transformed here image 1 to the frame of image 2. Can we transform image 2 to the frame of image 1? Yes, you can. Then you have to use this inverse of H. Inverse of H. So that code also I will just copy paste and show you. This one. What we are doing in this one is transforming image 2 to the frame of image 1 using the homography, using the given homography. Yeah. If you want to do that, you exactly do the same thing as before. Image 2 is fine. Read the homography file H1 to 2P homography file. And when you are doing the transformation, warp perspective, you can see the inverse has been used. NP linear algebra inverse. So I hope you can understand the difference here. So you can, yeah, okay. So the fold is wrong. Okay. What's there now? So you can see this first image, second image. And then what we will do is transforming the image to image one stream. So there's this discontinuity must be horizontal. See, and I have put some color also so that you can see the different image on top of that. Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments about this? Beautiful exercises, right? Can we do this for any set of images? No. They have to fulfill those criteria. They have to be of the same plane, two views, or the camera must be on a tripod and you take an arbitrary scene. Can we share this code? Yes, of course, I'll be sharing the code. I will upload the code. But if you want one of these codes, I will copy in the chat right now. Yes, and I have given you an assignment also. It's an interesting assignment. First one is, of course, a line fitting thing, which we did a couple of weeks ago. And then some earring thing also, finding. And then here, in this one, I have given you two circuit boards. Two circuit boards. So, first exercise is manually clicking the corresponding bonus and transforming one board on top of the other and subtracting to see whether there are errors. The situation is like this. Consider this. Now we have a correctly populated circuit board. Populated means you put the components on the circuit board. That is the gold standard. And when you make multiple circuit boards using a robotics system or something, maybe assume that you missed to put a component due to some reason. And then you subtract the image of the gold standard circuit board and the current circuit board. You should be able to see the error. So I have created a toy problem for you. So I have taken this image itself and rotated that by myself, and I have removed one component manually. So by this mouse clicking, you transform the first image onto the second, or second image onto the first, subtract and see where this error is. Most probably you will be able not be able to find out where the error is by mouse clicking points, because mouse clicking point is not accurate as we saw. Then I'm asking you to do this so-called shift-based points. Find the points on your own using shift. Yeah, you shift and shift ORB points. So shift points, we will discuss about shift points. We have discussed about shift points in OpenCV. They are available. Find the key points and descriptors in the both images and match the descriptors. All these things can be done using the. It's very easy. You can use the find homography function. And then, yeah, that is assignment, and it will be an interesting assignment. I hope when you do this number C and transform and subtract, you'll be able to see the error lighting up. That's the assignment. Any questions? This mouse clicking thing is cumbersome. I agree with that. Knowing the code. Any questions? Okay, then one more thing, the weight of the assignments. Because these assignments can be done using LLMs, large language model, ChatGPT, and so on, and Claude, and so on. The weight for the assignment is very low. It's very low. Pieces are also considered. The final exam will be the main point of examination, because in 1 second, all these problems can be solved using ChatGPT. Okay. All right, so you can see we have completed the homographies. I hope we understand this animal called the homography. But in the code, I showed you to use the find homography function. If you are interested in computing the homography by yourself, by using the equations in the slides, you are most welcome to try that and enjoy yourselves also. Okay, so now let's look at the descriptor-based alignment that you can do and that you will do in the assignment. Okay, so far we have assumed that we are given a set of correspondences between two images and we want to align. What if we do not know the correspondences? So that means we do not know that this red point corresponds to this red point, that this or yellow one corresponds to this yellow one, that we do not know. So then what we have to do is we have to use feature-based alignment. That means you have to extract features in both the images. That means shift features. So these are the shift features. And then we have to compute putative matches. Putative matches means probable matches. But among these putative matches, obviously, you can see that there are this match is incorrect, right? This much you can see it's incorrect, right? Obviously, it does not follow the general trend. Yeah, so incorrect matches will be there. So you hypothesize a transformation T using maybe 4 point matches and see the consensus. Verify the transformation, search for other matches consistent with T, and then you can do this, and that you do with the ransack loop. So this is what you can do with the OpenCV's find homography with ransack loop thing. Yeah. So we generate P2 correspondences. To do that, we assign descriptors. Those are the safe descriptors. Need to compare feature descriptors to local patches surrounding the interest points. So recall features detection was the feature description. Feature detection is finding a location, scale, and so on. Description means for each of these patches, you align a 128 dimensional a set of numbers. That's called a signature. That's called a descriptor. I hope you remember that when we talked about the shift. So simple descriptor will be raw image patches, and then we can try to minimize the matching by using UI minus VI. So if U and V are the image patches, this is called sum of square differences. This does not usually work. And then you can use normalized correlation by dividing by the standard deviations of these, but all these things are not so good. Yeah. So small differences can affect the matching score a lot. So that's why these shift descriptors are very, very important. So if you want to do any matching, the starting point is using the shift descriptors. If shift is not sufficient, it is not giving you a sufficiently large number of matches, then you can use slightly more modern uh, descriptor computers and matches like call map. And then I showed you Colmap can give you the 3D reconstruction also. Then I talked about the super glue also last time. That is also a very robust one. These are deep learning based ones. So you can see the 128 dimensional matches that we discussed. Yeah. What are the advantages of shift descriptor or row pixel varies? Gradients are less sensitive to illumination changes because shift are computed using gradients. So they do not get affected too much by illumination changes. Pooling of gradients over subpatches gives robustness to small shifts, but still preserves some spatial information. So these are great advantages are there. So each patch in one image find the short list of patches in the other image that could match it based solely on the appearance. And ambiguous matches will be there. So therefore, you can see for this F1, there are perhaps ambiguous matches because they look the same. So compare distances of nearest neighbor to the second nearest neighbor is a thing that David Loeb used in the SIFT features. So ratio of the closest distance to second closest distance will be high for features that are not distinctive. So with this concept, he was able to do these matches. So they did that with a lot of experiments. Even after filtering out the ambiguous matches, the set of putative matches still contains a very high percentage of outliers. That's why we need ransack. So ransack loop, I'll repeat again. We have done that before. Randomly select a seed group of matches, compute the transformation from that seed group. In the line matches, maybe use so that we use two as a seed group and compute the line, and then used that line to see how many of them agree. So this is called the consensus. Find inliers to this transformation. If the number of inliers is sufficiently large, we compute least squares estimate of the transformation on all the inliers. At the end, keep the transformation the largest number of inliers. Just to show you how this ransack thing happens, here you can see putative matches. The green ones are the correct ones, the red ones are wrong ones. So you pick two of them. So what we look like, we don't know whether they are correct or not yet. Huh? So we take two of them. I'm sorry, this is just a translation, so therefore you need only a pair, matching pair. So you pick this and see how many arrows agree with that. All these arrows agree with that. So then this is a good inline that we have found, and these disagree. These are outliers. So this, if we selected this as a putative match, only two will agree. Uh, all others will disagree. Yeah. Okay, so select the translation with the most inliers. So most inliers are these green ones, and then you compute an average translation with them. So this is the ransack loop. Uh, so mm, that one, you don't have to do it by yourselves because OpenCV has implemented that. So you can see when we computed the find homography, you use method as ransack. Can you see that? Yeah, that's what you will have to do in your assignment also. Half voting and all these things are also possible. So we will not talk about those things. Then large scale alignment is also there. We just talked about two images, and then inverted indexing, vocabulary trees, and so on are there. Uh, I will not talk about them. Interested people can go through the slides and try to understand. If you need more information about them, I'll be happy to describe this. Let's go to the next lesson. Up to now, is there any question? Okay, then. Okay, so the first part of our computer vision course is over. Now we are looking at the cameras. We will understand the typical nature of cameras, and we will understand using a matrix how to model a camera. These things will involve parameters internal to the camera, like the focal length, and parameters external to the camera, like where the camera is placed and the pose of the camera. We call it the location and orientation of the camera, named as pose of the camera. How to find these things. So this thing is called camera calibration. We will look at camera calibration also. Then our final intention is to use multiple cameras of a scene and to 3D reconstruct that scene, obtain the 3D coordinates of that scene. So you will notice that the action of a camera is a transformation from the 3D world to the 2D world. Therefore, the depth information is lost. So it is not possible to recover that. To recover that, you need more than one image looking at the same scene, and perhaps some other information about the scene, not perhaps, some other information about the scene. Maybe the lines are perpendicular and so on, that kind of information we require to be able to obtain a 3D reconstruction. But this 3D reconstruction thing is extremely important because now some movies are 3D movies, as you know, and people wanted to construct that kind of cameras. And deep learning networks now are able to obtain this depth automatically because of that large number of scenes they have seen. And this is a very, very hot area of research, 3D from images, very, very important. Because these kind of things are very important for self-driving and so on also. So, for example, last year's CVPR Best Paper Award was of VGGT, I think Visual Geometry Transformer. I don't know the meanings of all four letters. This one is able to recover the 3D structure, the depth, the camera locations, all sorts of things can be done. So we can see it's an extremely important and very hot area. Okay, so we'll look at the cameras with lenses briefly, and we'll understand some concepts which are not actually a part of this course: depth of field, field of view, lens aberrations, digital sensors, and so on. We'll understand. So these are pictures of real cameras. Those days, cameras did not have an automatic shutter. By pressing a button, you cannot open the shutter. They cover it with a cardboard, then remove the cardboard, keep the scene exposed. The camera's film exposed to the scene so that the scene is affected by the light that is coming through the camera lens, and then they close it, take it to the back room, dark room, and then process it. That's how it was done. Now, this is an interesting experiment done by this person called Paul Debevec. He's a scientist. The experiment was he took this camera and he removed the lens from the camera, and then he placed a little cardboard with a little hole here, little clip, to simulate the action of a pinhole camera. So there you can see he has been able to obtain a scene here. The corners are noticeably dark because a lot of light do not come to the corners, they come to the middle. And we will see the action of this camera and try to mathematically express that. So when we were kids, we also did this experiment without, of course, an expensive camera. We used two toothpaste tubes. Some people use just one. And this tube we took and we made a little prick here like that. And we placed the second toothpaste box, this one, so that we can slide it back and forth to make the image small or large. It's a slightly more advanced pinhole camera, as you can see. And because the light rays coming like that and going here, and this light ray coming like that and going here, we can get an upside down view of the scene when you look from here. It's a beautiful experiment, right? So this is some kind of a camera. Yeah. Now, what is the problem with that camera? So can you do that with low amount of light coming from the scene, maybe in the late evening? You cannot do that. There's not enough light. So, and also there is one more problem there. Mm, Uh, that problem is this one. Now take that tree for example. This is the tree. This is the tree. Okay. So now we have the camera. I will show that aperture or the hole that we made like this. Okay, like so, like here. And now tissue paper is here. Imaging plane is here. I'm asking you that if you take one location of this tissue paper, this one, to this point, where can the light come from? Of course, you will tell me that light can come like that. This ray is okay, right? And at the extreme edge of the hole, this ray is also okay. These are straight lines. These are rays of light. This is okay. Here, this one is okay. And all in between points are okay. So you can see to this one point, infinitely many points in this area can contribute. To light up that one point, infinitely many points in the scene can contribute. That is why the eye is blurred. This thing is blurred. To reduce the blur, yeah, you can shrink the aperture. You can shrink the aperture, right? Reduce the blur. So obvious, if you make the aperture shrink like that, right? Shrink like that, this will be cut off, this rays will be cut off, these rays will be cut off. Maybe it corresponds to only one very tiny area in the image. But what is the problem there? There's not enough light coming in to excite the sensor if you actually use a camera for this rather than a tissue paper, right? So if your prick size is 2 millimeters, there is blur. If your prick size you make it small, yeah, and then your image will be sharper. You make it even smaller, like zero point 0.6, the image will be even sharper. 0.35 maybe, then the image is quite sharp. But the amount of light is too small. So why not make the aperture as small as possible? You cannot do that because then less light goes through the prick. And then one more thing is diffraction effects take place. So you can see here, when you make it even smaller, diffraction happens. Not this is not refraction. This is diffraction. Refraction means if you take a glass cube like that, and when light goes through this glass cube, okay. I hope you remember this from your O levels. When light goes through this glass cube at the perpendicular, it bends toward the perpendicular, yeah. And you draw another perpendicular here, and then it bends away like that. Of course, these two are parallel. So this is called refraction. And this is called Vartane refraction. This is the effect that the lens uses. But what is diffraction? Diffraction is when the light goes along a sharp edge, like so, the light bends. This is called diffraction. Apakirana. Apasarana. I don't remember a single word for that. Diffraction. This is why sometimes when the moon is covering the sun, you can see a halo around it, that kind of thing. Okay. So adding a lens is the solution to get rid of this low light problem. So you can see when you add a lens, light coming from many points light going in many directions, going in this direction, that direction, this direction, this direction, are focused onto one point. So a lot of light from that point will be focused onto the film. So therefore, it will be bright enough. Yeah. So that's the action of a film. Lens focuses light onto the film. So we can use a thin lens model. Rays passing through the center are not deviated, as you know. Pinhole projection model still holds. All parallel rays converge to one point on the plane located at the focal length. Yeah, these are the rules that we use, right, for the thin lens model. All right. So the lens focuses light onto the film. There's a specific distance at which the objects are in focus. Yeah, this distance from the lens, center of the lens. Away from that, they are not focused. They are not focused. So, for example, if you take now this plane, yeah, that plane is focused onto the film. That's correct. But if you take a different plane here, this one, they get focused somewhere here, maybe somewhere here. So, therefore, you can see the light rays are not touching the same point. They are defocused. This is called circle of confusion. Okay, now let's look at the thin lens formula, which we have done in O levels. What is the relation between the focal length, the distance from the object, from the optical center? So this is the lens. You can see this is the lens, and that this D is this one, and the distance at which the object will be in the focus. So that is D prime. So this is the image plane. So this is the distance from the lens center to that. This is D prime. So there are similar angles everywhere. So if you take these two triangles, they are similar triangles. Similar triangles, the angles are the same. So their length ratios are the same. So you can see y prime divided by y is equal to d prime divided by d, because this one is d and this one is y and this one is y prime. As you can see, this is d prime. So that is there. But there's one more, and here also there are similar triangles. So you can see d minus d prime minus f, d prime minus f, this is that distance, d prime minus f, divide by f is equal y prime divided by y. So this is y and this is y prime. So you can see using these equations, you can derive the thin lens formula, which we are familiar. Any point satisfying this thin lens equation is in focus. So those that do not are not in focus, but this does not happen like abruptly. They don't transit like slow transition. So you can see this range is in focus and this out of focus, out of focus. This range which is in focus is called the so-called depth of field. So here also you can see the depth of field. These are not in focus. These areas are not in focus. Okay. So the controlling the depth of field is important for great photography. Um, so uh, uh, yeah, so here you can see these are the lens is open. This is called the aperture. So you can open the aperture in a camera, right? So this is called the aperture. So light goes through this one. So this is large aperture. This is large. This aperture is small. The aperture is now closed. Yeah. So take this two. Actually, we are taking this plane. Light goes to the lens and focuses onto the film, onto the imaging plane. So there is no defocus here. So it is perfectly focused. If you take 2, 3, light will try to focus somewhere here, not focused. So there is the circle of confusion is there, not focused. 1, not focused again. Light focuses here, so not here, right? So you can see not focused. So only the plane 2 is in focus. Away from plane 2, they are not in focus. But if you make the aperture small, then sort of 1 and 2 also sort of get focused. Like they are also like small circles of confusion. Yeah. So you can see when you make the aperture small, the whole scene is usually in focus. When you make the aperture large, only a certain set of depths are in focus. Yes. So if I ask you a question, let me ask you a question. If you want to make a um, landscape scene, when you are, I'm typing that, when you are photographing landscape, asking, should the aperture be large or small? Please answer this question so that I know that you are understanding this and that you're attentive. Landscape means large, right? You go to maybe go to Norelli or something and make you want to make a picture of the Gregory's Lake and all the mountains beyond that and so on, that kind of thing. What's the answer to that question, please? People are typing the answer. That's good. I invite all of you to type the answer. Only 4 people have typed the answer. Others also, please try to type the answer. Okay, so a few people answered. Thank you for those who answered. Yeah, a lot of people answered. The correct answer is small. The aperture must be small for a landscape photography. Why? Because the close by object, that means the Gregory's Lake and the boats, and the far away object, that's mountains, both must be in focus. To make such a landscape photography, can you do that late evening? Can you make a landscape photography photograph in late evening? Answer is no. Why? There's not enough light coming through because your aperture is small. So therefore, if you want to make landscape photography, I think all of you know, you cannot do that in the broad sunlight also at 12 in the noon, because then shadows will be there. You have to do it early in the morning. Early in the morning when the sun is just rising, you do the landscape photography. Yeah. All right. So if you want to make a portrait photograph, that means you want to take a picture of a person. Picture of a person. You have the aperture large or aperture small? Thank you very much. Some people are answering. Aperture must be large because the person's face must be in focus. Background must be blurred. When the background is blurred only, you get great portrait photographs. So, but when you take a camera, you don't know whether the aperture is small or large. You have the D number, right? D number. D number is there. So this is 1OF D number. So if this aperture is large and D number must be aperture is large. So with the D number we control. So maybe you can ask ChatGPT for an answer for that question. Teach me about aperture size. the not D number, F number, right? F number. Let's ask this. Aperture is one of the three primary exposure controls in photography, along with shutter speed and ISO. Shutter speed is how quickly you, how, what is the number of seconds during which the shutter is open? It's 1/200th of a second, 1/100th of a second, up until maybe several seconds. Yeah. ISO, how sensitive is the CCD CMOS sensor. Yeah. When your light is not enough, you can make the sensitivity large. Yeah, that's the ISO number. So you can see this is how cameramen control the amount of light or the exposure that is coming into the camera. But unlike the other two, it is also directly shapes the image geometry, specifically depth of field and certain optical characteristics like diffraction and aberration. What aperture physically is. Inside the camera lens, the aperture adjustable diaphragm that controls how much light enters. So let's look at the aperture. Aperture of a camera changing. I hope we can see a small um, uh, actual image of that.
This is a very basic video on how f-stop and aperture work. This is the first part of the three parts of the exposure triangle. We can see that's our f-stop at a 1.5, and that's our f-stop at a f16. So what does that do, and why is it f-stop versus aperture? Best way for
let me reshare with the sound. He says that what we need to hear.
Triangle, we can see that's our f-stop at a 1.5, and that's our f-stop at a f16. So what does that do, and why is it f-stop versus aperture? Best way for me to explain aperture versus f-stop is aperture is basically your window, and f-stop is going to be opening or closing your window. So if we want our window open, it's going to allow more light in, or if we close our window, it's going to allow less light in. So that's where the f-stop.
Okay, that's enough. So you can see the aperture is specified in a camera by the F number. The aperture is expressed as not as a diameter directly, but as a ratio between n, the number of f stops, divided by d. D is the aperture diameter. F is the focal length. So you can see a small f number. For example, we call it 1.8. F divided by 1.8, large opening, a large f number, like f16, what he spoke about, a small opening. Lenses with this kind of f number, small f numbers, they are expensive. Each full stop changes light is factor of 2. That means sequence 1.4, 2, 2.84, 5.6, 8, 11, 16. So amount of light coming in will be by a factor of 2. So depth of field, wide aperture, shallow depth of field. So if you have like this, it's good for portrait photograph. Narrow aperture, f8, f16, depth of field is deep. The whole scene is in focus, but of course you can see due to this reason, diameter is small. So therefore, the amount of light coming through is quite small. Yeah. So please read about these things and understand it's not a part of this lesson, but I have to say something about that. This is not a photography class and I don't know. So yeah. Any questions about this? Yeah, I hope it is okay. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
Is there a relationship between that means aperture and the ISO value.
Yes, okay. There is a relationship between those. So I'm not a photographer. I don't know much. So okay, let's now these are three things now. Okay, this is good, I think. Yeah, this image. So now you can see they have shown the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. I think this is an important thing to know, right? Whether you are a photographer or not. So let's see whether we fix the shutter speed. Maybe we should fix the shutter speed so 1/120 for general purpose photography, right? When you fix the shutter speed, that means how long the shutter is open. Now, in this case, the shutter is open for 1/120 seconds. Very small fraction of a second. Shutter is open. So the amount of light coming to along the time axis is constant. So now, if you want to have like if number 16 or something, like even here, maybe here f16 or something, that means your aperture size is very, very small. Aperture size is small. You are doing a scene photography, and if the environment is dark, then you have to amplify. How do you amplify? You have to make it brighter by increasing the sensitivity of your CMOS sensor. But when you increase the sensitivity of the sensor, you will get grainy nature, some grain and noise will be there. So with the aperture, you can see when the aperture is, if number is 11 or something, you can see the whole thing is in focus. The foreground and the background are in focus. Here, when the aperture is small, that means if number, this is like 1, you can get 1.2 or something, you can see the foreground is in focus, background is not in focus. So depth of field is stronger there. Yeah. So when you're going into this region, that means amount of light coming to the camera is small. Then the choice that you have is to increase the ISO. So if you increase the ISO, the problem is your image gets grainy. Those are the problems that you encounter. Yeah. So that's the thing. I don't know too much about that. If there's a photographer in the class, maybe he or she can explain further. I hope I answered up to some extent.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. It keeps me excited also. Otherwise, the teaching the class is not so exciting sometimes. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the question and the contribution. Yeah. So you can see a small aperture increases the range in which the object is in approximately in focus, but small aperture reduces the amount of light need to increase exposure. So you cannot do a landscape photography during late evening. You have to do it with a lot of light in the scene. Otherwise, you have to increase ISO. So when you increase ISO, then your image looks grainy. So you can see here the small depth of field and the large depth of field again. Small depth of field, large depth of field. Here all line focus. Here only maybe that part is in focus. Also, there's a thing called field of view. That means the angular field through which the light comes into the camera. Field of view is the angular extent of the world observed by the camera. Like so, right? So the angular field. So what determines the field of view? It determines by the focal length and the height of the CMOS sensor, D and the 2F. You can see phi equals tan inverse uh, uh, D by 2 divided by F, right? So larger focal length means small FOV. So you can see in this one, in this diagram, you can see 17 millimeter. This F is very small. When the focal length is very small, the whole scene is in the image frame. But when you increase the focal length, the amount in the scene, that is in the picture, becomes smaller and smaller, right? Can you see that? When you increase the focal length even further, then maybe at this maybe with 1,000 millimeters, only that part of the ship is visible in the scene. All others are out of the frame. So one thing is these lenses that can have all these focal lengths, like from starting from maybe 17 to 1,000, they are very expensive, good for wildlife photography and so on. But the thing is, to make a good picture of a portrait and so on, you don't use this kind of a telephoto lens. You use sometimes you use fixed focal length lenses called Batto. They are also very expensive. There are other properties, and I don't know about this. So with this, the different kinds of effects can be achieved. For example, look at this one. So here, this person is moving away from the scene while he's increasing the focal length. Yeah, when he's here, when the camera is here, the focal length is small. When he's here, focal length is large. So therefore, the size of this object, the car, sort of remains the same in the frame. See, but when it's further away, the 3D nature of the camera is gone. I'm sorry, 3D nature of the car is gone. Here, the 3D thing is there. It is there, right? You can see the 3D-ness of that. So this is large field of view, small f, camera close to the car, small field of view, large f, camera far from the car. So when you make portrait photographs also, this is of very important concern. In this case, 3D-ness is too high. The person will be very unhappy saying that you made a photograph of me, my nose looks too large because the 3D nature is too high. Here the 3D nature is very low. The girl will say, okay, you have made a photograph of me, my face looks like a cardboard, flat. This is the right amount. So wide angle lens, telephoto lens, and standard lens. So that's why in portrait photography, you have to use select the focal length properly, or use one of those fixed focal length lenses. Yeah. So with this, we can describe some concepts like perspective photographs. You can see weak perspective. This is a small focal length. Yeah. And here the focal length is very large. Yeah. So with this, you can see this image, and the lines that are parallel in the actual scene are no longer parallel in the image. Here, the lines that are parallel in the scene are sort of parallel in the image also. That's the effect of this between perspective versus weak perspective. So then that dolly zoom and all these things, you can go to this link and see what these things are. And then these are used in movies also. Yeah. Then there are things called lens aberrations. So real lenses have many lenses inside. Many lenses inside. And I have heard that when they make lenses, these expensive lenses, they get the material of the lens, silica, they slowly cool it down. And that's how they make expensive lenses. So one flow of lenses is this called vignetting. In the vignetting, what that means is the light coming through at the corners of the scene escape. They do not get, because it's outside the lens, right? They do not get, they do not come and strike the film. So you can see the corners are dark. It's called vignetting. So this is a property especially of the old lenses. So old photographs have this effect. So if you want to make photograph look slightly old, you can add some vignetting using your Photoshop. And then radial distortions. There are two types, pincushion distortion and the barrel distortion. You can see this is like a pincushion, a cushion with 4 pins here, right? And this is the next one is like a barrel distortion. This distortion, is it pincushion or barrel? This one here. And you can see it's a barrel distortion here. And these are things that happen due to the effects of lenses. So expensive lenses, I think, get rid of these effects. Yeah. So then spherical aberration is there. spherical lenses do not focus light perfectly. Rays further away from the optical axis focus closer. So you can see these rays, they have focused somewhere here, right? So this is the thing called spherical aberration. Chromatic aberration means different colors having different focal lengths. You can see the red focal length, green focal length, and the blue focal length. Due to that, at the edges, you can see color halos, fringing effect. Then if you think about the digital sensors, so these came in CCDs first in cameras. Now no CCDs, all are CMOS sensors. A digital camera replaces film with a sensor array. Each cell in the array is a light sensitive diode that converts photons or the light to electrons. Two common types, charge coupled devices and complementary metal oxide semiconductor CMOS devices. So you can go to this link and read about them. So one thing is, when although you get color images, there are no three CCDs. One CCD sensitivity red, one for green, one for blue. So what they do is they have filters on top of this. So these one CCD color light sensitive array. This is that one. So you can see the filters: the blue filter, the red filter, and the blue filter, red filter, and the green filter. Through the blue filter, only blue light goes. Through the green filter, only green light goes. Through the red filter, only red light goes. So therefore, in the grid, when you get electronic signals, when you get numbers out of these pixels, they're just numbers, and we have to interpret them as green, blue, and red. So some pixels do not have green values, so you have to interpolate using the outside values. So this operation is called demosaicing. It is an operation that is done inside the camera. Why more green? So you can see there are twice as many green pixels as blue pixels or red pixels. What is the reason for that? The reason for that is you could have chosen red, twice as many red pixels as green pixels or blue pixels. But they chose green because human eye is more sensitive to green light. That's the reason. Okay. So when you demosaic, then color moire can happen. You can see different effects. I don't know too much about them. So fine black and white details in image misinterpreted as color information. That can happen because of the detector not detecting each color at each dot. So that's why when you go for TV shows and so on, you are advised not to wear shirts with very thin stripes and so on. So different effects, noise. So when light amount of light is low, you will notice noise. Light sensitivity or ISO must be increased. It's a noise trade-off. Stuck pixels are there like that. They are always of the same, stuck at some value. These are imperfections in sensors. In camera processing, over sharpening can produce halos. Compression JPG artifacts can be there. Blooming CCD charge overflowing into neighboring pixels. Color artifacts, color more, purple fringing from micro lenses and so on can be there. So please read about them. I don't know about this too much. So this is a history of cameras briefly. So early pinhole model were known to Aristotle and so on, BC, and then Kodak, okay, first film cameras, photography film cameras, and then first consumer CCD camera, Sony. Sony came up with the camera, but Sony went out of business, as you know. First fully digital camera by Sony. Yeah. This is the first digital scan photograph. So cameras are getting large in number. So almost all internet traffic now, as you know, is images and videos. And this is the peak actually. This peak is due to what? The phone cameras. Question. What red dye appear in some photos? Why does red dye appear in some photos? Yeah, that's a good question. That appears due to the light getting reflected from the lens of the eye. Back side of the lens of the eye, the light gets reflected. Total internal reflection, right? You know that what total internal reflection means, that uh, uh, when light arrives at some certain angle, right? Arrives at a certain angle, this goes and they do not get transmitted, but total internal reflection happens, right? So light comes out. So when that happens, the redness of the vessels in the eye can be seen. I think that's why. So redness. Thank you for that question. Okay, that's the lesson briefly about cameras. I mean, it's not a part of our lesson, but covered. So next we will look at how to um, uh, understand the action of a camera mathematically. This is called single camera geometry or camera calibration. We will take a 15-minute break and do that. So I will pause the recording. Good afternoon and welcome back. Now let's understand the geometry of a single camera. And at the end of the lesson, you will understand what a camera calibration is. And I will show you the tools, online tools using which you can calibrate the camera also. So first, let's understand why we need to go through these lessons. Secondly, we'll understand what the perspective projection model is. And then we look at the intrinsic camera parameters, extrinsic camera parameters, and then we'll be able to come up with this concept of the camera matrix. And then finally look at the camera calibration and brief introduction to triangulation. These topics we will take up later on when we understand the two-view geometry and the structure from motion. So given an image, can we recover the 3D structure? So generally it is not possible. That's why human beings are given two eyes and so on. To get the 3D sensation, you need two simultaneous views. But given some conditions in the image like these perpendicular lines and so on, you can attempt to get the 3D reconstruction of that. So things are not as they always appear. So for example, how did they make this picture? So they kept the camera near the pumpkin, made the focal length, mm, made the aperture very small, so that the whole scene is in focus, so that the far away people and the pumpkin were in focus. So here also they did it like that. So okay, let's look at the single view ambiguity first. Why do we call that there is an ambiguity? So think about this now. In a camera, the world is 3D, an image is 2D, right? So infinitely many points along a ray. You can see a ray of light here. The ray is this is the camera signified by an eye. So you can see the ray here. This is the ray, and this is the ray here. You can see that that's the ray. Where can the object that resulted in this small x image be? Where can it be? It can be here. Then it will result in that image, right? Because it's a light goes through the lens in light rays, right? Yeah. It can be here, it can be there, it can be there. So anywhere along that ray, the 3D point, the actual point can be there. So this is the ambiguity. Yeah. So that's why you can make images like that, get a very complicated structure and cast light and get a picture like that. Yeah. And draw so-called anamorphic perspectives like that. Yeah. And here you can see these artists, when they drew things, they wanted to depict anitya and so on. If you look at this picture in this angle by doing something, you can see it is this one, right? So like that, so people came up with these things. So our goal is to recover 3D structure. When a certain assumptions hold, we can recover the structure from a single view. In general, we need multiple views to recover the structure, yeah, of a scene, yeah, 3D structure. But first, we need to understand the geometry of a single camera. Okay. So we look at the perspective projection model and intrinsic and extrinsic parameters of the camera. Now, this part is very important. You have to pay attention to this. So first of all, I will describe what this geometry is. So remember, when you think about the pinhole model, and we make a little prick like that, yeah, and there is a tree or something here, and of that tree, an image is made upside down, right? So actually, this is the tissue. And this is the imaging plane, right? Imaging plane, image plane. This is the 3D scene. This is the cardboard or the lens. This is the center of that lens. So same thing with the lens. But one thing is, because of the similar triangles, see, all these things are similar triangles, right? When you draw a ray through this to here, right? This angle and that angle are the same, right? So therefore, these are similar. This is 90 degrees anyway. 90 degrees anyway. So these are similar triangles. So therefore, it is okay even if you draw it in front of the lens. The tissue or the imaging plane, we can draw it in front of the lens. There is not a problem. So then we can save space in our paper. So therefore, in this one also, you can see we have drawn the imaging plane in front of the camera center or the center of the lens. This is the lens. Okay. So you can see the axis of the lens, y, x, and z. And these are the axes of the image. Small y, small x, and of course capital Z is there. And this is a 3D point in the scene, 3D scene point, capital X. For example, this one is capital X. And an image point is signified by small x. The corresponding point in the image is small x. So this we call the principal axis, this we call the image plane. So I hope now you can understand the geometry of this. Okay. So now let's draw it in normalized camera coordinate system. Camera center is at the origin. The principal axis is z-axis. X and y axis of the image plane are parallel to the x and y axis of the world. You can see that. So this is a 2D picture of this scene that I have drawn here. So now you can see the world point is here. That is what we designated as the capital X. Point in the image we designated as small x. That's this one. Yeah. This is that. Yeah. So now you can understand this is the focal length. The distance from the center of the lens, this is the lens, to the image plane. It's a focal length. And the distance to the object from the center of the lens is z. That's that coordinate, right? Z. So this height is capital Y. This height is small y. That's what we want to compute, the height in the image. All right. So now using similar triangle formulas, we can compute this. Okay. So small x, small y, as you can see, is this is capital Y. This is capital Z. This is small y, right? Small y. This is f. So similar triangles, because of these similar triangles, here is this one triangle. Here is the other triangle. This is capital Y. This is capital Z. This small f. This small y. So you can see the ratios must be the same. So we can say y divided by y is equal to f divided by z. So small y therefore is equal to f times y divided by z. So it's very simple formula. This is how you compute the height of the image. All these coordinates, capital Z, capital Y, capital X, small y, f, all are in meters or millimeters. Meters or millimeters. Okay, this is fine. But now we want to put that in matrix form. Here is the matrix form. So capital X, Y, Z. And remember, we have putting a 1 here. These are the homogeneous world coordinates. We call them homogeneous. We have put a 1 there. There are more reasons. We'll talk about them later. This is called the camera projection matrix. You can see how this matrixing works. This row multiplies this column now. So all are zeros except this f, right? So therefore, you get fx here. Then for the second row's computation, this second row multiplies this column, right? So then f is at the second slot, so you only multiply y, right? So that's why you get fy here. Yeah. And then thirdly, you get the third row and multiplies this column, and the third element is non-zero, that correspond to z. So you therefore you get z here. From this, how do you get the Cartesian coordinates? Remember, you had to divide by the last coordinate. So up to some extent, so fx divided by z, second coordinate will be fy divided by z, and the third coordinate will be 1 when you divide the whole thing by z, right? Equivalent representation. Yeah, so this you can see we have obtained. That means we have converted these two equations into matrix form. Any questions about this? Okay. Now this camera matrix is very special. This camera matrix is of size what? It is of size 3 rows and 4 columns. A point in 3D is 4 rows and 1 column. Image of that point is 3 rows and 1 column. I hope you can understand the sizes of these objects. But all these measurements are in millimeters or meters. Okay, so you can see, you can write that as xy1 with some arbitrary number lambda. So we write this image in geometry as lambda x equals px. That is an important equation to remember, and we can write equality up to a scale with 3 sides, and this is the these two equations you must remember. Okay, so now we have to think about this, like we have not considered the world coordinates, so that means capital X with respect to what coordinate frame has that been specified. It has not been specified with respect to the camera coordinate frame sometimes. So then we have to do these transformations, rotation and translation that are important. The translation and rotation between the camera coordinate frame and the world origin. Those things we have to incorporate. So when you think about camera calibration, configure our transformation from world coordinate system to image coordinate system. So we have to incorporate we'll do it step by step. So capital X, I think you understand that. Lambda X, you understand that, small x. And you have rotation and translation, so-called canonical projection matrix, and the camera pixel coordinates transformation matrix. We'll understand them in detail. Now you don't have to understand this right now. Okay. These are called extrinsic camera parameters. Why do we call them extrinsic? They are extrinsic or outside the camera parameters, outside the camera. They are the camera location, not a thing when they incorporate when they manufacture the camera. Intrinsic camera parameters, these are intrinsic. Why do you call them intrinsic? They are actually internal parameters, principal point, scaling factors, and so on, focal length, and so on. And this we call P equals KRT. This is something that you must memorize. You must memorize this. K is the intrinsic camera calibration matrix. These are extrinsic camera parameters. P is a camera matrix. What is the size of P? Again, 3 by 4. Okay, so let's now we will incorporate these quantities one at a time. First of all, the principal point. The thing about principal point is this. Now, when you take images, you take the maybe bottom left corner or the top left corner as the origin, not the center. In the previous example, we took the center of the image as 0, 0. X0, Y0 is the center. We don't want that. We want a corner of that. So therefore, we have to assign a coordinate to this P with respect to this axis. Px and Py, we want to incorporate that, okay? In the normalized coordinate system, the origin of the image is at the principal point. In the image coordinate system, the original is the corner. Okay, let's incorporate that. So we want the principal point to map to Px, Py instead of 0, 0. So therefore, we will add Px and Py to small legs like so. You can understand that. Any questions about this? Okay. So now let's write that in matrix form. I'll give you a second to write that in matrix form. Okay, here is the answer. Okay, right. This one is the answer. So here you can see, remember this row multiplies with this column. Now f multiplies with x, that's okay. Px multiplies with z. That's why you get z px there. Now let's take the second row. Second row multiplies with the same column. So f multiplies with y, px multiplies with z. That's why you get z py there. And if you take the third row, multiplies with the same column, and z is multiplied by y1, you get z here. So when you do the division, take this one and divide by z, you get this one. Take this one, divide by z, you get this one. So you can see what you originally had, now you have captured into matrix form. So now our camera matrix P has the focal length and the principal point coordinates, but they all are still in millimeters or meters matrix units. Okay. So incorporation of the principal point, I hope, is clear. So we can even write it like that. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You can see that because this is 3 by 3 matrix, it can be multiplied with this 3 by 4 matrix, because these numbers have to be the same to be multipliable, right? Okay. So we call this camera calibration matrix. This is the canonical projection matrix. So right now, as we have P equals KIO is what we have. I means the identity matrix. This matrix, right? It's IO. We can call it I3, right? Identity matrix, 3 by 3 identity matrix, I3. This is a vector of zeros. Vector of zeros. That means it's a 3 by 1 matrix. Vector of zeros. This one is 3 by 3, right? So that's what you write by I solid as 0. That's one. Okay. That's notation. What are the units of the focal length f and the principal point coordinates? They are in metric units, meters or millimeters. What units do we want the be measuring image coordinates? We don't measure image coordinates in meters. We measure image coordinates in what? Pixels. Pixel units. So that's we need to introduce scaling factors for mapping from world to pixel units. This is what we do by looking at the intrinsic parameters or scaling factors of the camera sensor. Now think about this. If you take a camera sensor, it has a particular size, right? It has a particular size. And it has that many pixels. So what is the size of a pixel in meters? That's the question we are asking. Pixel size, we call it 1 over mx by 1 over my. 1 over mx and 1 over my. So my and mx are pixels per meter in horizontal direction, pixels per meter in vertical direction. So this is the pixel size. So now what we have in meters, we have to convert to pixels by using the scaling factors mx and my. So pixels per meter times focal length. You can see the focal length you can get in pixels now. Because this row multiplies this column, right? Now mx multiplies with f. So that one we call it alpha x. Alpha x is the focal length in pixels in the x direction. Now they have two numbers, not f, fx and fy, alpha x and alpha y. Focal length in y direction in pixels. This is a principal point in pixels. Now you can look at real sensors and see what this thing is. You can look at expensive cameras. Okay, I have this, I think, Sony, this mirrorless camera, Sony Electronics. These are expensive, good cameras. So the camera body is $3,000. You can see they are expensive. You can see the CCD here, and it's very difficult to find what the CCD that they are using by looking at the website. Very difficult. So you can only make a guess. You have to look at the specifications of this. Same website. Oh, I don't know how to get the specifications. Yeah, there you go. So general features. Video data format, video resolution. Exmo R CMOS sensor. That's the CMOS sensor. You can see some details about the sensor, right? Exmo R CMOS sensor, 61 effective megapixels. So these sensors are also by Sony. RS or something. RS, yeah, I think it's RS. You can you have to go to the Sony Clinical, you have to site and find out about this. XMOR. So you can see that it's IMX266C edge sensor. Diagonal is 9.33 millimeters. different ones are there. So for all these things, the diagonal size is given, height and the width are given in a number of effective pixels. See? So with this, you can compute, because we know the size of the sensor, you can compute the pixel size. So you can see 1.85 micrometers times 1.85 micrometers. So you can understand what we are saying, right? So these are extremely important ideas. Okay, these are those two numbers. These numbers, pixel size. Yeah. So this is the calibration matrix K in pixels, alpha x, alpha y, beta x, and beta y. There are other things also. So in general, the camera coordinate frame will be related to the world coordinate frame by the rotation and the translation. We have incorporated that, this rotation and translation. In non-homogeneous coordinates, the transformation by world to normalized camera coordinate frame is given by this. So this rotation is there. This x tilde is the coordinates of the point in world frame. This capital X. Capital X with respect to this frame. But what we want is with respect to the camera frame. So we have to subtract the camera center and multiply by R, coordinates of the camera center in the world frame. Yeah, 3D rotation matrix and the coordinates of the point in normalized camera frame. So we can write that as RXT. So here T, as you can see, is minus RC. Yeah. So X camera means capital X in the camera coordinate frame. So this X is there somewhere. So if you get that with respect to the camera frame, that is what we call that as X cam. So now that it has specified in camera frame, we can use this other derivations that we did. Yeah. Okay, so X cam. Transformation from normalized 3D coordinates to pixel image coordinates is done by this matrix. So we write like that. I hope you remember from the previous slides that we got this KIO. And then finally, we will have this equation. Finally, lambda x equals KRT capital X. T is equal to minus RC tilde. Okay. Coordinates of the camera center in the world frame. What is the projection of the camera center in the world coordinates? So if you do that, you will get 0. The camera center is the so-called null space of the projection matrix, yeah, and so on and so forth. So in summary, P equals KRT. We have to remember that. Intrinsic parameters, principal point coordinates, focal length, pixel magnification factor. So you can see the F, Px, Py, and Mx and My are the intrinsic parameters. Skew for non-rectangular pixels we are not considering. Radial distortion we are not considering. But they can be found. Extrinsic parameters, rotation and translation related to the world coordinate system. These are R and T. Okay, let's do a small question. In the imaging sense of alpha 7V full frame mirrorless interchangeable lens camera, the parameters are 35 millimeter full frame. That means 35.7 times 23.8 millimeters is the width and the height. 35 millimeter full frame. So 9,504 pixels times 6,336 pixels, 60 megapixels. Find the pixel size. So you can see if you draw this, this one is 9,504 pixels, 35.7 millimeters, 6,336 pixels, 23.8 millimeters. So you can find that pixels per meter numbers in mix and my. So if you take a object of 4,000 pixels in the image, what is the size of that in the actual on the lens? So you can multiply that with this number, 1 over this number, and find that. Also, if we are given that focal length is Let's say now we have our focal length is maybe 40 millimeters, for the sake of saying that, okay, 40 millimeters. 40 millimeters, and this Z, let's say, is 2 meters or something. Can you find the actual object size in meters? I think you can, right? Because you know this size, that is 4,000 pixels, and you can convert that to millimeters by using this number, and then you can do the ratio to find that in meters. We can do that. Okay. So this 4,000 pixels, we have to convert that to meters, divide that by mx. Now you get that in meters, and then that is this height is what we have now in meters. So divide that by f. Okay. Multiply the whole thing by z to get this number, right? That's a calculation you have to do. So you can use a calculator and do that. So I'll do that. 4,000 divided by 266,218.5, divide that by 40 millimeters, multiply that by 2 meters means 2,000 millimeters. So you will get that answer as, in millimeters, you'll get that 0.75 millimeters. I hope it is correct. It's not correct because I have to convert everything into meters and do it. Let me do that. 4,000 pixels divided by 266,218.5. That one divided by 40 millimeters. Multiplied by meters to, yeah, this is in meters. So you'll get 7.75 meters. 70.75 meters. That's the answer. Actual size of the object. So I think you understand some understanding about the internal parameters of the camera and the external parameters of the camera and how the camera matrix is formulated. So then the calibration means obtaining these numbers. You can obtain these numbers by considering actual 3D points, these points, actual 3D points, and if they are matched with 2D points on the image. We can do that using an object like that. So we know the 3D coordinates of those and we can measure them. So these students have done that exercise. You can see the known 3D coordinates and their image points. With this, you can compute the camera matrix. In the homography finding, we got the cross product, as you remember. And similarly, to find the camera matrix also, we can find a similar equation. And then we can, this camera matrix has 11 degrees of freedom because it has 12 numbers and 1 scaling factor. 6 correspondences are needed. Homogeneous least square again. So we have to get A transpose A of this matrix and compute the eigenvector corresponding to the smallest eigenvalue. So I will not go into these details because we will not use this equation to do that, but although you can do that with the previous numbers that you have, but I will show you the so-called camera calibration toolbox using which you can do that. If you have a camera, if you get a new camera and you want to get the camera parameters, you can go to the camera calibration toolbox. It is there in MATLAB and OpenCV board. In this one, you can see there are many examples that they have. We can get one example. So what they do is, you can see they have taken 25 images or something of this checkerboard pattern. So you have to print this checkerboard pattern and paste it on a glass. Why do you have to paste it on a glass? Because it has to be perfectly flat. So after that, you make these different orientations and take about 25 pictures, and then it will do this corner detection by using Harris corners or something. It does the corner detection, and then these corners are iteratively aligned uh, like so, and you have to give the exact size of the checkerboard box also that you give, and then these corners are aligned, and you can see there are some minor mistakes, and those will be aligned slowly, and then finally when you align them, you will get the camera parameters. So this, you can see the focal length is 661 66.67, 661.67, and the principal point coordinates 306 240. So you can see this image is 300, approximately 320. Okay, 640 by 480 camera, right? A small camera. Focal length is this much. So there are more refinements that you have to do, and then get the exact final camera parameters. So if you are interested, you have to go through this and get the camera calibration done. So this is how you calibrate a camera. But you can manually do it also if you know the image coordinates and the 3D points corresponding ones. You can do that, but we will not go through that exercise. Yeah. So after you do the camera calibration, we will not go through them. We can do triangulation. So it's a brief thing about this triangulation. We will not go through details today. We will go through the details next time. Now, first, given projections of 3D points of two or more images. So like that, we know the exact point in both all these images, the same point, same point, same point. With known camera matrices, find the coordinates of that point. That is called triangulation. So again, in another picture, you can see, so this same coordinate we have detected in the other images also. So you are asking where is the 3D point? That's called triangulation. You know the camera location and poses this, you know, camera, where the camera center is, all these things. The camera, three camera matrices, we know. So triangle, given a projection of 3D point in two more images with known camera matrices, find the coordinates of that point. That's the question. No? So usually, if you take two 3D rays like so, they don't actually intersect. If you take 2D rays like that, in the 3D, they don't intersect. They can have a gap. If they intersect, that's good. So that's the error that we have to minimize to get that. We want to intersect two visual rays corresponding to x1 and x2. These are the image points, x1 and x2, this point and that point. So we know the camera center, and we know this center. So you draw a ray, light ray through that. You draw another ray, light ray through that, and they do not usually intersect in the 3D space. So you have to minimize the perpendicular distance between these two rays. So you can write mathematical equations for that. And you can see this is called the, we can take that and project into the image and then minimize that distance, minimize this distance. These are the ones that I have written in these equations. All these things that we write in the slides can be implemented on a piece of code. Yeah, but we will not do all of them. You can obviously, we don't have time to implement all of them, right? So this is called the linear approach. So you get the cross product and get rid of that, and then there is a way to write this matrix. This is called the skew symmetric matrix. So if you have a cross product, Cross product, you can write it as, if you take A's elements, A1, A2, A3, if you write in this fashion, it's called the skew symmetric matrix. A cross product can be shown as a matrix multiplication. That's what they have done here. Here these two equations also you are showing as matrix multiplications, and then two independent equations each item for three unknown entries, and then you can solve it. Okay, that's the triangulation. Then then we will have the structure from motion. That problem is more complicated than the triangulation. Given 2D point correspondence between multiple images, compute the camera parameters and the 3D points. That means these correspondences are given. That means we know that this red matches with this red, matches with this red. Those things we know. For all the points, we know these matches. And we want to find the 3D points corresponding to them as well as these camera parameters. This is called the structure from motion problem. So we don't know that, and we know given the known cameras and projections of 3D points in the two images, computing the 3D coordinate. That's called triangulation, which you already saw. And then if you do not know the cameras, and if you know the 3D point, we call it the motion problem. So when we want to find cameras, we call it motion of the camera, right? Motion. It's called calibration. And then finally, to find the both of them, the camera parameters as well as the 3D point, we call it structure from motion. So in this structure from motion, there is one important algorithm people apply called bundle adjustment. Bundle adjustment is something like a bundle of I think these little sticks, bundle of sticks. You can see these image coordinates we know. These image coordinates we know. These image coordinates we know. The correspondence we know. These are the camera center 1, camera center 2, and camera center 3. We don't know this. And these 3D points, 3D points also we do not know. So then we project race like that. We adjust all these things together, 3D points and the C1, C2, C3, those centers, so that these bunch of rays, this bundle of rays go through these image points. That is called bundle adjustment. It's an optimization framework, simultaneously refining 3D coordinates described in the scene geometry and parameters of the relative motion and optical characteristics of the cameras employed to acquire images, given a set of image depicting several 3D points from the different viewpoints. So you can see these image points are fixed. These image points are fixed because these are things that we observed, and these we let them change, these we let them change, and so that we obtain accurate ones. After doing the initial solution, we carry out this bundle adjustment. Its name reflects a geometric bundle of light rays originating from each 3D feature and converging on each camera's optical center, which are adjusted optimally according to the optimization criterion involving the corresponding image projection of all points. You just need to understand what bundle adjustment means because in these 3D reconstruction recent papers, they employ bundle adjustment, but VGGT does not employ bundle adjustment. I'm sorry about that. It's from meeting two. It's from previous lecture. So this is the book that contains all the information about the lessons we are covering next week and the week after. Multiple geometry, Richard Hartley and Andrew Zisserman. I am happy to say some of our students have worked with Professor Richard Hartley, and they are very successful people now. Were going for higher studies. Professor Richard Hartley worked at Australian National University. I think now he's retired. Okay. So that's all I wanted to cover today, the camera calibration. Next time, we will do one more exercise of in Python, given some 3D scenes and given the camera matrix, how to make an image using exactly this equation. Using exactly this equation, we will do that. So you can see we have modeled the camera using the extrinsic parameters R and T and the intrinsic parameters, that means focal length and the principal point coordinates. And we can model the imaging geometry of the camera by this equation. That's all you needed to understand for today. And from next week, we will go into more details about the triangulation problem and the structure from motion problem, which I gave you a prelude now, just introduced you. You don't have to remember this yet. Okay, so that's all. So if you have any questions, you are most welcome to answer. ask at any time. I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, you can log off. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant Sunday afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes.